Hello and welcome to the latest pre-season episode of the FPL Affairs podcast, a podcast that lays bare our innermost FPL desires in the build-up that climaxes on the opening day of the 25-26 season. In this video, part 2 of the admin's initial draft teams, I'll give my opinions of them, a rating out of 10, and we'll see which I think are the best. Anyway, before we get started, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for all of our content, and ring that bell to be notified each time we release new content. Enough of my small talk, let's get cracking.
And there's Mo Salah. There goes Haaland. He's on his way again. He's hungry. He's scored. Ice cold precision from Palmer. Kayo Saka. That is a diamond of a goal.
FPL Affairs Hot Dog, 24-25 ranks, 644,643, only his second season, and average rank 1.3 million. So big jump from his first season to his second, improvement in rank. If you don't know who Hot Dog is, I'm not too sure why this one's been included, to be honest. If you don't know who it is, it's Martin Murray. He stopped being an admin last season, midway through, for reasons completely understandable. But then he came back in and he's now a member of the admin chat still, although removed himself from social media. So I'm a bit bewildered because his contributions really in the chat is he tends to spout a lot of rubbish, amongst other things, some of which is X-rated. Others, well, are a bit delusional. Like, for example, he already has the belief that Alexander Isak is a Liverpool player. And he keeps saying, and, well, you know I do not swear, bleep Newcastle, and has the belief that we're going to get relegated within the next 5 years. So I will look at his draft. He does like the odd differential, or two, or three, or more. By the looks of it, he's followed his habit from last season, which he made a short around game week 4 when Salah and Haaland were hauling and decided he was going to remove both of them. And he is starting this season without both of them. Let's see. Balance-wise, budgets, too much in goal. Definitely gone big at the back, bit outbalanced. And seriously, Darwin up front, who may be leaving. And, well, I said he spouted rubbish in the chat, but this draft is, well, rubbish. I really don't know where to start. Or shall I even bother? Last season, with the risk factor, he'd have a couple of weeks where he'd be doing really well, really high scores, and then the next couple of weeks he'd drop right down in rank because some of the template picks would hit off and he'd have none of them. But anyway, that's last season, so we'll see how differential this one is. Pickford, first one to make an appearance in our admin first drafts. Sells on the bench, so that, I'd say, two great goalkeepers and two options for starting ones, but having both of them, I think you could save $500,000 for sure on that by perhaps dropping Sells to a 4.5 or Pickford for a 4.5. Defense, and I'd say actually looking at it, that Mart's really gone for big at the back. As well as that 10.5 in goal, he's got three 6.0 defenders, Gabriel, Aït-Nouri, Frimpong. First Arsenal defender we've actually seen. Gabriel's form across last season, attacking form and clean sheets and bonus. And I think there's a reason why possibly he's the first Arsenal defender to appear, is that Arsenal's opening fixtures, other than game week 2, they've got away to Manchester United. Game week 3, they've got Liverpool. It's nervy there, but I'd also say because he's got Aït-Nouri next to him, those two won't do well for DEFCON points. because they both play for defences that build out for the back. So a lot of the time, the likes of Arsenal and Man City, although they're likely to get more clean sheets, if they win the ball at the back, they won't be clearing it. It'll be the short passes and the building out from the back. So that's the concern there with Gabriel and Nori. And I mentioned on Kieran's and Mix my concerns about Frimpong for minutes and settling into the Premier League. Then he's got Gahey, good choice in focusing on Palace, although there are other options in the Palace defence which be more beneficial in either attacking returns or DEFCON if Mart could save 500,000 somewhere. Midfield, first note is that there's no Salah and he's another Verts owner. Eze makes an appearance, so we've got an 8.5 there in Verts. Palmer being this premium asset as there's no Salah. Then you've got the 7 or 7.5 Eze and Bernardo 6.5, I suspect, with Souček, good budget option, and he's always good from a set piece in there on the bench. And forward line, Isak, that's your premium. Darwin, the sort of mid-range, and Welbeck as well. I think Darwin's possibly, 7? Welbeck 6.5. So what I like about this is that even without Salah, you've got the premium asset in each, both in the front line in Isak and the midfield in Palmer. As it's a Salahless and Haalandless draft, he's got the next most premium after those two. The problem is if Salah or Haaland or both get a cracking start, which both of them did last season, then scrambling to get pennies or taking hits or sucking it up until you've got the free transfers to switch to bring in whichever one of those if they both hit off out of the premium. Could you drop down one of the premium assets, one of the 6 mil assets in defence to a 5 or a 5.5? Looking at the bench, I'd say bench boost opening fixture isn't necessarily out of the question. Torres, yes, Newcastle at home could be tough, and Palace, Gahey with Chelsea away. But one thing I think needs noting about this DEFCON point, which is a change in our mindset, is the centre backs are more nailed on for 90 minutes than the fullbacks are. And in the tougher fixtures, those centre backs are also likely to get more DEFCON points, i.e., a minimum of 10 clearances, blocks, interceptions, tackles. So, therefore, likely to get those 2 bonus points for the DEFCON. So, Gahey isn't necessarily a bad pick, so to speak, and they also rotate nicely with some of the other clubs. If he hasn't considered it or isn't considering, then bench boost game week 1 could be a brave differential start, although it is becoming increasingly popular. So I will say for that a 7.5 out of 10, largely because there's the gamble of going without both Salah and Haaland and the Liverpool triple up, because at this point of the season, I don't think we need to, even though it's Liverpool and he's a Liverpool fan, that going triple up from the off is a bit risque for me, but Mart likes to be risque. Moving on from Mart, we have got the FPL Affairs Lion, big boss man Lewis Greening. Now, you will notice that his opening draft is a bit empty, which I'll mention in a moment. Last season, his overall rank was just under 3.7 million. He's played 10 seasons, and his average rank is just under 1.5 million. All I can really think of to explain Lewis's lack of a draft was that he was too busy lying around, maybe. cheesy dad joke there. So I apologise for that, and I think best move on to the next one, which is my one. Now, last season, I had a terrible mare of a start where after 10 game weeks I was 4.5 million, but I managed to pull it back. It was a hard graft, but to finish with an overall rank of 82,720. I've played 15 seasons, although only the last 5 have been ones which I've played seriously. My average rank across those 15 seasons is 1.09 million, which I was actually in a way pleasantly surprised about, because the seasons I didn't take it seriously, I wasn't playing the chips, I was missing deadlines. The transfer would roll over, then I'd maybe miss the next one, but then because it wasn't up to 5-year-old transfers, it was still 2. I'd have perhaps suspended players or injured players in the squad. And I think once the numbers and popularity of the game boosted up, there were 3 seasons somewhere in the middle of these 15 where my rank was 4 million something, or possibly even one where it's 5 million. So I think that's probably why it's so low. I didn't calculate what my average rank would be if I'd only counted the last 5, so the 5 seasons I've played seriously. Although I am aware that over the last 3 seasons, due to other managers and how they've performed, my overall rank for the last 3 seasons is 6k. But anyway, I'm talking too much about my FPL history and haven't looked onto my initial draft. Now, this is the one that I made super quickly straight after work on the Monday. And before bedtime, I had made some changes. But I thought, out of talking points and initial things, I will put up this draft. Because of his consistency over the last few seasons as a top scoring goalkeeper, I've started with Pickford. My knowledge of Darlow, having been the first choice keeper at Leeds at the back end of last season, and him only being 4.0, gambled with putting him in as my backup goalkeeper, hoping he's the playing 4.0 from this season. Although since making this draft, Leeds have signed a goalkeeper, so Darlow's unlikely to be the starter there. Spoiler, my current draft does not have both of those in. Can't actually remember who is in, to be fair. But anyway, so that's 9.5 million spent on their premium keeper and 4.01. I've got currently selected from this draft a 3-4-3 formation. My 5 defenders, Milenkovic, but his DEFCON points, he got a lot last season in at 5.5, so I've got that price point covered. I actually put 2 6 mils in, 8 Nori and Kukurea for their minutes and attacking returns, although since this, at least one, if not both of those, have sort of come in, gone out. But yeah, it was more their attacking prowess, which is why I put those 2 in, and Chelsea's opening fixtures too. But Milenkovic was the DEFCON one, my benched defenders concert of Villa, because of he's a 90-minute defender. Aston Villa do pick up clean sheets, and they've got the best opening 8 fixtures. I also put in there, which I will admit was a bit crazy, after Burnley's defensive record last season. I thought the signing of Kyle Walker might beefing up that experience and his pace, so I initially put him in, but then he only lasted a couple of hours before I took him out. But that was the initial reasoning I'd put him in. So my defence had been 2 6 mils, a 5.5, and 2 4.5s. So in some ways, the starting 3 heavy, but I actually think quite balanced in terms of got all price points. If either of those 6s don't perform, they could drop down to another 5.5 or even a 5 mil defender, whether that be alternatives at Forest or at Everton or Crystal Palace, in particular those squads. So yeah, in the midfield, Salah was second name in following Isak, but that was a Newcastle bias. Got in there Salah, Then I've actually dropped straight down to 3 6.5s in Declan Rice, Caicedo, and Rodri, with the thoughts that Rodri and Rice would pick up DEFCON points as well as have those attacking returns. Not as many of some of the more higher priced midfielders, but they would chip in. And then I've got Caicedo and Nottingham Forest's Elliot Anderson on the bench. They were the top two midfielders for DEFCON points last season. A slight difference with the midfielders DEFCON over the defenders is midfielders also have ball recoveries included, but because of that, they have to get a total of at least 12 to get the 2 DEFCON bonus points. So on reflection, which is I think why I quite promptly tweeted this, was that I'd gone too DEFCON heavy in that midfield. So Milenkovic, yes, in defence, but then I'd sort of compensated in midfield. So if any of the Verts, Marmouche, there's Roger's only 7 million, so I'm only only half a million out from him. Cunha and Burmo. So any of those that are just a bit much, I'd potentially be struggling. So I did have a review, although this team, and following the episodes, the reading on FPL Affairs Book FC playlist, I have made sure with all of my drafts that I've got 0.5 mil left in the bank just to cover me for any slight price points in the first week that I wouldn't miss out. Then my front line, I've got Isak, so second most premium forward. Then Jarrett Bowen, and finally Welbeck, which I put in because he's likely to be the Brighton penalty taker, as João Pedro has gone to Chelsea, and Welbeck at 6.5, Bowen at 8, Isak at 10.5. So at the point of making this draft, I've got all price points covered in the defence, all price points covered in the front line. But on reflection, again, as I've said at least twice, my midfield too DEFCON heavy and insufficient attacking returns from there. So with that respect, I will give my first draft a. Now, shall I be overly critical or shall I be overly kind? Bearing in mind, I know there's 0.5 in the bank and that I changed it straight, I will say a 7 out of 10 for this draft. Okay, moving on to FPL Affairs Peacock. So Andrew Farnaby, whose overall rank last season was 2.8 million. He's played for 10 seasons and his average rank is 2.3 mil. Looking at his squad in goal, he's gone for Darlow like me and as a Leeds fan, he would have definitely put him in as the playing goalkeeper, and I'm confident that he's taken him out by now because of the goalkeeper signing Leeds have made. He's gone for Kelleher as the starting keeper. I think what's useful with that is Darlow and Kelleher might have rotated quite nicely. It'll be interesting to see what price point the new Leeds keeper comes in at. I suspect he'll be a 4.5 as he's unproven at Premier League level. Anyway, back five of Frimpong, Gabriel, Ait-Nouri, Bogle of Leeds, who, spoiler alert, Andrew's the second Leeds fan I know, and both have mentioned Bogle was a differential centre-back that could potentially be quite solid for DEFCON points. And yes, I said Cucurella. So my first instant call to that back five is big at the back for sure, for 6 millions. But I think first off with, well, positive to be fair to Andrew is there's 2 centre backs there and 3 full backs, so you've got a balance of defensive contributions and attacking fullbacks. But at the same time, you've got Frimpong unproven at this level. Ait-Nouri, we don't know what his rotation risk's like for Man City. So if funds are needed either up front or in midfield, then that can easily be made by dropping a couple of the 6 mils down to 5.5s or 5 mils, as I said with previous drafts about Forest defenders and Palace defenders and centre backs, that is, and Everton as well could be reviewed and accommodated. Moving on to the midfield, we've got no 5.5s, 3 6.5s, so taking into account the defcons and attacking returns, Declan Rice and Enzo. Kudus bringing in Tottenham with their good opening fixture. My worry about Kudus is, does he start? Is he a consistent starter under Thomas Frank? We shall see. Our first appearance for Elanga is whether Elanga will start on the bench with Jacob Murphy starting. I'm not confident with that. And actually, what you may notice that my first draft, I only had Isak in, and currently I have no Newcastle players in my current draft, which we'll look at further down the line, not in this video, but another one. The main absentee being Salah, and also actually the second one out of the draft so far, second premium of premium, second no Haaland, no Haller. Hey, maybe that can be a sort of the combo of, instead of saying no Salah, no Haaland, say it's a no Haller, no Haller. Anyway, can I copyright that or trademark it as my own Haller, Haller? Anyway, I'm going off the point. So, Vert's investment with an 8.5, and then a front line of, I think, another front line period of João Pedro, Isak, and Jared Bowen. Front line I've mentioned, I've good heavy. With that, I think midfield could possibly be changed or adapted to bring in another attacking one. I would say if you save some pennies from the defence, you could move one of the 6.5s or 7 million midfielders up closer to an 8 or an 8.5 with that. But no, I like that for a no Salah, no Haaland draft. That's a good balance, and I think if FPL Affairs Peacock is considering a bench boost in game week 1 and then bringing in one of those 2 premiums, it's definitely worth. Although I have just actually noticed he's got triple Chelsea, so that can knock off half a mark. Sorry, Andrew. I think I do like his actually marginally better than mine, so another 7.5 draft, 7.5 out of 10 draft, I think, for me. Moving on, we've got Dave Paxson, FPL Affairs Rooster. His overall rank last season was 39. He's been playing for 12 seasons, and his average rank, the first of us to be under the 1 million mark to actually have a 6-figure rank. His average rank across those 12 seasons is 960,875. Anyway, bit of a distorted, squished and squashed and rearranged image based on the size it came, but he's gone with Sells and Kelleher. I'm guessing possibly rotating keepers. In defence, differential tossing from Chelsea. I think he's 5 million possibly. Udogie of Spurs, another Frimpong appearance. Gahey of Crystal Palace and Esteve of Burnley. Positives there, really. You've got a good balance of goalkeepers. Not too much. I think 9.5. And that's what I'm possibly considering at the moment, a 9 or a 9.5, depending on which I choose. So I like the goalkeeper pairing. Sells, which I'm not sure if I mentioned previously. Joint highest clean sheets last season. Made a lot of save points as well. Your defence, you've got, 1 premium, 1 budget bench fodder in a Esteve, a couple of 2 4.5s in Gay and Udogie and 5 on Tosin. So I think looking at that without actually closely looking at the rest, I'd say Dave's very much gone with more attacking focus. But the defence, he's got 3 or 4 fullbacks. I'm not sure where in defence Steph is, but he's got that. Good identifying particular clubs with their strategies as well for DEFCON, because he hasn't gone for any in the build from the back sides of Arsenal and Man City. I think what could possibly be looked at for me, Dave, would be is Gahey the right Crystal Palace defender to go for, but that could be down to budget because he's a 4.5. I think Chris Richards is also 4.5, and he had much better DEFCON returns last season, had it been a thing then. Looking at the midfield, heavy midfield, I do like that midfield, to be fair. I like it a lot. And braved on initial setup, triple captain in Salah. He's got Palmer, Wirtz, Alanga, and Rice. So the most expensive 2 midfielders, then mid-price premium in Wirtz, followed by Alanga at 7, and then Rice being a bit more of the DEFCON type midfielder, number 8. Not sure what else to say with that midfield other than it's heavy. You've got Salah, 90-minute person, solid start. Same for Palmer, same for Rice. Wirtz, we shall have to wait and see. And if I'm being picky, again, it's Wirtz going to settle into the Premier League, and Alanga, is he definitely going to start the opening fixture over Murphy? And the second thing, Newcastle's opening fixtures are not great. If you're looking about the first sort of 6, 7 or so. Up front, Dave's gone for budgetary end. Wood at 7.5, Pirro at Leeds, and Strand Larsen 6.5 at Wolves, which will be a tough opening fixture, hence the bench and a 3-5-2. Like with a lot, as I said, I love that midfield, heavy midfield. But what drops it slightly for me is the uncertainty with those two. And like I've said with some of the earlier drafts, I worry looking at Dave's if any of the more premium price point forwards hit off, how Dave's going to get there. I think the most obvious, really, I would say from this would actually be drop Alanga down to a 5.5, and that $1.5 million add to one of those forwards. So whether that be Pirro to get him onto another 7.5, or even push Wood up to, because adding that 1.5 onto him would put him in the pricing for Watkins and Gyökeres. So that'll be something to think about there. But yeah, I like Dave's other than that forward line. So I think I will give him an 8 out of 10-ish. Yeah, 8 out of 10. Okay, we've got, I think, 2 left, and I have absolutely no idea how long I've been waffling on for. So bringing up the differential king, Barry Stokes, our FPL Affairs Swan, in honour of his Swansea fan status. His overall rank last season was 732,955. He's played 14 seasons, so 1 less than me, and his average rank is 1.27 million. Defence for Bruggen 4.5 and Kelleher 4.5, so possible rotating doubles. That I think is going to be a good strategy this season. Defence quite differential. Conter, who's on the bench in this version, as is Gahey, which appeared both for 2 clubs that will pick up clean sheets, but those 2 not necessarily the best for DEFCON points. His actual starting 3 have been Rodon for Leeds, Matheus Nunes for Man City, and Udogie for Spurs with their opening fixture against Burnley. Risky defence for me, because is very, I think, budget ended. So no real premiums in there. If any of the clubs start hitting clean sheet up to clean sheet, it will be how he gets onto those, and it's always quite boring and lack of motivated if you're going to make a defensive transfer and rather focus on the attacking slots, which is why I'm picking defenders that are more nailed and long term for me. Midfield, Salah, Wirtz, apologies if I mispronounce it, Rangers of Man City, Cole Palmer of Chelsea with Aaron Ramsey, and that's not that Aaron Ramsey that played for Arsenal, but another one that plays for Burnley. He'll be the place-holding fifth midfielder. And then up front, he's gone with João Pedro, Danny Welbeck, and Isak. So front three, all price points covered. So Welbeck can be dropped down or switched for any other 6.5s or below. João Pedro can be switched to any of the other 7.5s. And Isak could be dropped down to either of the 9 mils or 8.5 if Ekatike's on. Midfield, every price point covered. Forward, every point covered. Yeah, I think my only really worry for Barry's, to be fair, or main worries is I think there's too many differentials in the defence, and also the lack of even just one premium. Midfield, the uncertainty of Wirtz, how he'll hit the ground. Rangers as well at City, but the midfield is potentially good. And Rangers, I think, is maybe 6.5. So there should be a possible comp points and some attacking contributions. But then he's got the budget with Wirtz and Palmer to drop down to other midfielders or to boost that defence. That would be the easiest way round of doing it, I would think. And he's got João Pedro as captain. And again, as I think I said, my worry for the João Pedro pick is, especially with his popularity, is his minutes. And if people are expecting, following the Club World Cup, for him to be nailed starter, if he blanks to start and Delap comes off the bench and returns, I think Nico Jackson suspended the first game. That could be a juggling act after the second fixture. Anyway, and finally, FPL Affairs Weasel, Paul Walnut, looking at his overall rank last season was 867.5k. He's played 5 seasons and his average rank is 1.03 million. Okay, goalkeepers, he's gone with the Brentford double. He's the first that's done this, actually, in terms of going for a chosen a goalkeeper and then his bench goalkeeper being the backup of that start. So if for whatever reason Kelleher doesn't play, then Valdemarson comes off the bench, and you'll know he's a 4 million keeper that will be playing. So at least he's got a definite starting goalkeeper, whether there's injury to Kelleher or not, spending too much. In defence, Wan-Bissaka, Concert again, Udogi again, Gehi again, Estev again. So I don't think there's much to say about that defence, other than I think really that shortage of Forest in your defensive positions, defensive or goalkeeper. How there's clearly budgetary reasons behind those because of what is in front of them. This is actually the first out of all the admin drafts that contains both Mo Salah and Erling Haaland. So there's that weak-ish defence budget where you've got Wan-Bissaka's 4.5, Konsa 4.5, Udogi 4.5, Gehi 4.5, and Estev 4. So this very much emphasis on budget, but budget at the back has allowed him to accommodate Salah, Wirtz in midfield. So he's got premium price point, next premium price point of 8.5s. Then he's got 2 6.5s in Rice and Rodri. Finish off with Caicedo as the highest scoring DEFCON player, had it been a thing last season, as his fifth midfielder. So the fact his midfield is made up with double Liverpool, one Man City, one Arsenal, and one Chelsea is good. Then a front line which is balanced at price points. Haaland, most expensive, which can always be dropped down to Isak or either of the 9 millions. João Pedro in the mid price point of 7.5. And then Strand last, on which after the first game's out of the way, Wolves have got a few nice fixtures. Him as coming in at 6.5. I think the front eight, great range, great balance in midfield. Four of them the same as mine as it goes, actually. From first draft, that is. They've changed since. And a balanced forward line, which a number of the admin drafts didn't have. A lot of them were actually a lot heavier in defence. But yeah, I think my main things is Paul's got a good balance in there, and structure. The main thing lacking is a premium in defence, and I think really I would possibly consider downgrading. And I've said this already, Verts or possibly even Rodri to upgrade one of those defenders from 4.5 even to a 5.5, such as, and I haven't actually mentioned him, Tarkovsky of Everton, because he got the highest scoring DEFCON points out of everyone. He would have got an extra 44 points, James Tarkovsky of Everton. So I would consider dropping Rodri down to a 5.5 and raising one of those 0.5s to Tarkovsky, and possibly switching João Pedro to a more nailed forward. But we shall see how Chelsea get on in the forward line. So, out of all those drafts, feel free to skim back to the others. But which one stood out for you? I would say Paul's finished with. I'll give him an 8. I think an 8 out of 10. Because yeah, he's got a good balance, and actually, I'm surprised. In some ways, I'm surprised at an 8 because that it's a Salah and Haaland draft. I wouldn't think there'd be one I would like as much as this one. But all in all, as said, these are the first drafts, and I'm sure all of us have made plenty changes since these. So it will be interesting when we release a final draft version of this video in the final week building up to the deadline of game week 1. Where you can find us, how to get in touch, via email, lowercase FPL Affairs at gmail.com. On X, our handle is FPL Affairs. Facebook group, lowercase Fantasy Premier League FPL 1, although if you just search in the groups for FPL Affairs will come up straight away. Our YouTube channel, which you may be watching this from, is handle at FPL Affairs, so youtube.com/@ FPL Affairs, and Spotify. The link is in the description because theirs never comes up as a full clear sentence. Oh, and final thought on that slide, you'll notice on the right hand side I've included, first of all, my 3-year overall rank. So taking into account our overall ranks over the last 3 years, I'm ranked 6,000 in the world. Underneath that, I've got the FPL Affairs FPL League code. So we've got the classic league code of 12RRCG and the head-to-head league code of WRNFSG. I think all in all, we had some really interesting drafts in there. Well done to Dave FPL Affairs Rooster, and Paul, FPL Affairs Weasel, who got the highest ranked ones. I think Paul's was interesting because he had both Salah and Haaland in. Dave's with a lot of balance, but generally I think as a whole there was a lot of balanced spread of budget and funds throughout the squad, and it was actually very refreshing to see how varied and different they were. There were a few players that tended to crop up in most. In defence, Frimpong cropped up a fair bit. I think Konza did. In midfield, Wirtz, obviously Salah, Palmer in one or two. And up front, I think João Pedro was possibly the most common. But anyway, there'll be ones to look at. Join us again soon for the next Idiot's Guide, which will be focusing on this season's changes to the rules, such as DEFCON, which I feel like in this video and the last one I've gone on and on about. And then in the final week before the deadline, I will try to redo this video with the admin final drafts, and also try and help by having a guest or two on. So I think all that's left to say is keep your FPL Affairs 1,000,001 drafts under wraps. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our video and channel for all our existing content. Goodbye, everybody.